Heartache and healing in Charleston as funerals begin for some of the victims in last week's church shooting. Yesterday, hundreds of mourners gathered at the site of the shooting to remember the loved ones they lost.
Michelle Miller is at Emmanuel AME Church, where Bible study resumed last night, 1 week after the tragedy.
The shooting happened at a Bible study last week in the basement of Mother Emanuel, and last night more than 100 people turned out in that very same room for the first Bible study since the attack. Later, hundreds more gathered down the street for a concert to show their solidarity.
This little light of mine, now I'm gonna let it shine. Oh!
1 week after being torn apart, the Holy City joined hands to remember and celebrate the 9 lives lost.
Let it shine, let it shine.
Jeremiah 29:11, and I'm gonna close with this.
Earlier, the Reverend Norville Goff led a Bible study in a room where nearly all traces of the murder scene have since been removed.
We must send the right message that evil will not overtake our faith.
Goff has been named interim pastor of Mother Emanuel, where he's focusing on community.
Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. These are the tenets that many of us have grown up with. And that's what you see in Charleston.
Paula Hinton traveled from nearby Folly Beach.
It felt like a peaceful, loving place. And as the Reverend said, that this is a place of God. We have to claim this territory.
Myra Thompson was one of the 9 killed. Her sisters Eunice Coakley Guyton and Blondell Gadsden say Mother Emanuel is where they'll gain strength.
I can't believe in God and be afraid of what's going to happen
Not what's going to happen, what did happen.
Yeah.
That's where your sister died.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to go in my Emmanuel because he doesn't instill fear. Myra would say, God is in control. And whatever he's going to do, he's going to do.
The shooting has sparked an intense debate over the Confederate flag, and a very visible aspect of the debate is pop culture.
The studio behind the popular TV show Dukes of Hazzard has decided to remove the Confederate flag from the iconic General Lee car. Warner Brothers says it'll stop manufacturing any products that bear the battle flag. We're joined now by USC marketing professor and celebrity branding analyst Jeetendr Sehdev. Jeetendr, good to see you today.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, for fans of Dukes of Hazzard to go forward and not be able to buy the General Lee model might be a real wake-up call about how divisive this symbol has become in our society. What's your reaction?
You know, it is certainly a divisive symbol. I think that, you know, in pop culture in particular and in the form of kind of freedom of expression in art, you know, the symbol, the Confederate flag in particular, has taken on different meaning. So, you know, it is very much up to the artist to imbue the Confederate flag now with the meaning that they want to express, whether it's, you know, it is rebelling against what, you know, institutionalized racism or whatever it may be. So I think that the imbued meaning is really the most important thing here.
How much of this decision, you think, was in part a business decision? Because now you've had leaders from South Carolina and other southern states now calling for the removal of the Confederate flag when it comes to that part of sort of official government representation. We saw Nikki Haley deliver a very impassioned speech in which she called on that flag that flies at the State House in Columbia, South Carolina, to be removed. How much of this do you think was a business decision?
I think, you know, there is a business decision, and there's definitely, you know, a mass audience that needs to be catered to here. But when we look at what's happening within pop culture, the nice thing about how the flag is used is that, once again, it allows that freedom of expression. And that freedom of expression is really important because what's happening in society today is there's this rhetoric that is kind of suppressing what people are really feeling. So they can't really express what people are feeling about Caitlyn Jenner. You can't really express what is happening in terms of, you know, our feelings towards race relations. And as a result, there's this tension that's building. And then we see something like Charleston. You know, there's this
it's interesting
blow-up.
that you bring that up about political correctness and political sensitivity, because artists like comedians like Jerry Seinfeld said he won't even perform on college campuses now because he said that young people are so sensitive to insensitivity that's rampant in comedy that they don't get his jokes. They just say, oh, that's racist, that's sexist, that's ageist, and he won't do it. But when we're talking about pop culture, is there a place for symbols that offend, for humor that offends?
There is a place, once again, I mean, not when you say, is there a place for symbols to offend, I think there is a place to, use the symbol in a way that is imbued with the meaning that the artist is wanting to use it for.
30 years ago, Tom Petty made a music video where the Confederate flags featured. In 2012, Leonard Skinner, also Pride of the South, said, we're not going to use it anymore. It's too divisive. It's too offensive. I mean, is it something that in pop culture artists have to consider?
Oh, absolutely, they should consider it, but at the same time, somebody like Kanye and Ludacris have also used the Confederate flag, and they've used it in a very different way. And, and some artists are looking for that kind of discussion. They're looking to provoke thought, and they're looking to get people to think about things in different ways. And others are kind of like, you know what, no, this is too divisive, and I don't want to go there, and I'm going to stop using it.
Jeetendr, one more question, and they're telling us to wrap, but I just have to tell you, I came back from Charleston, and we know that there were pictures of the accused gunman carrying the Confederate flag in one hand and a gun in the other. I wonder, as a sort of brand, because you're a branding expert, has the Confederate flag lost some of its luster and power because of this hate crime?
Well, I think the Confederate flag has always lost its luster, and I think for quite a few years people have not been pro-Confederate flag.
But for a branding perspective, as it continued, as we see Warner Brothers make this decision, as we've seen, as Contessa was saying, musicians pull back, is it losing its luster that way in terms of its effectiveness from a marketing standpoint?
I think a lot of brands are feeling a lot of pressure to, not use the Confederate flag because of PC reasons. So in that sense, yes. And if the Confederate flag with the Dukes of Hazzard was used to actually further institutionalize racism, then it should absolutely go.
Jeetendr Sehdev, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.